Good evening, everyone. Hopefully, you're having a wonderful day so far. I got a good one for you today. So, it seems like Jagmeet Singh came out yesterday and gave his view on the foreign interference report that came out earlier. And let's just say it was quite average. So, I thought we'd get into it. But first, if you wouldn't mind hitting that like and subscribe button, that would be awesome. We're almost at the magical 1,000 subscriber mark, and then I get to get paid, so woohoo. But with no further ado, let's get into it.
Really honored to be joined here with by Peter Julian, my neighbor, my House leader, and also the Member of Parliament for New Westminster Burnaby. Um, thanks for joining us today. We want to talk about the recent report released by Justice Hogue. We know that foreign interference is something that's very serious, something that Canadians are worried about. We want to defend our democracy. We want to make sure that our democracy is free from foreign interference. We also want to make sure that everyday Canadians can live their lives without the threat or harassment of a foreign government. So we had called for this public inquiry. The Liberals had said no. We were the first political party to call for it, and now we've got the report. What Justice Hogue has highlighted, I think one of the biggest points that she made in her report was the deep concern she has regarding misinformation and disinformation, particularly on social media, and how we do not have tools right now to combat that. And it is rampant. The amount of misinformation that is available is rampant, and that is a serious concern for democracy and for an upcoming election. And so that is a concern that was highlighted by Justice Hogue. I think that concern is also exacerbated by the leader of the Conservative Party's decisions and his actions. Pierre Poilievre has accepted the endorsement of Elon Musk, someone whose platform is also one of the worst actors in a lot of ways around misinformation and disinformation, coupled with the fact that
You mean free speech platforms? So, let me get this straight. The NDP doesn't like free speech platforms like X. They'd rather have censorship platforms like Facebook, because Canada already censors Facebook. We can't post anything about politics there. And news doesn't come through to us through Facebook. And it's nice to know that the NDP, if voted into power, would censor social media.
Pierre Poilievre also wants to defund a public broadcaster, which is a source of real information, journalistic integrity, really highlights a dangerous set of priorities.
The CBC is journalistic integrity. I mean, maybe they got one or two people on there who actually have some integrity, but man, your bar is low.
Given Justice Hogue's findings of misinformation and the need for fact checks and fact confirmation. What other things that Justice Hogue highlighted, I want to point out, is he said that all leaders, all political leaders, should get security clearance and receive information that is pertinent to their parties or to democracy in general. And that highlights the real concerns that Canadians have raised about Pierre Poilievre, the only leader of a political party that has not received security clearance. And so that was highlighted. And I think finally, Justice Hogue did raise concerns about sitting parliamentarians and questionable or concerning behavior. And I'll highlight, she said, of questionable ethics. And that is something in the context of foreign interference that I'm concerned by. Ultimately, what we want to see is now the recommendations that Justice Hogue has made be implemented. I've instructed my party, my national director and team to follow all of the recommendations as it relates to political parties so that we're doing our part. I encourage other political leaders to do the same.
Okay, before the question and answer period, just one quick thing. So he's talking about Pierre Poilievre's security clearance again. Why does Pierre Poilievre need security clearance when Justice Hogue comes out and says that was no traitorous activities happening? That nothing particularly serious happened? That the NSICOP report was all wrong? I don't understand. Like, CSIS should send these documents out publicly because apparently nothing happened. And only only some bare minimum light, foreign interference kind of stuff, in her view, went on. Now, I haven't read the whole report yet, which I'm going to get down to, but that's going to take a long time because that has a lot of pages. But from her speech, this should be made public. All of the names should be made public, and the NDP and the Liberals should stop whining and complaining about Pierre Poilievre not having his security clearance.
CTV News. You in the report from Justice Hodge, you mentioned that there was some foreign interference, maybe not to the substantial amount that would affect the election, the past elections that we've had. Do you know of any ridings that you have an eye on that potentially are impacted by foreign interference?
I'm concerned with what Justice Hogue raised was that while it didn't, she concluded it did not impact the overall election, but there were specific races where there could have been an impact, and it could have changed the decision or changed the result in specific ridings. Given what we've seen here in our province of BC, that an election can be determined by sometimes 1 or 2 seats, that to me is very concerning. I don't have a specific ridings that I'm concerned about at this point, but the idea that an election can be determined by just a couple of seats, and Justice Hogue conclusively said that there were a couple of ridings where there was evidence that foreign interference tipped the scale one way or the other. That to me highlights how important this work is.
And you mentioned misinformation and disinformation becoming a growing threat and something that's happened in the past as well. Do you have a couple of examples that you've seen that are concerning to you?
Yeah, we're seeing right now somewhat like an AI created misinformation about political leaders right now. You could go online and see different political leaders from parties. You can see me in a fake video trying to get people into a pyramid scheme, which is completely false and not true. But that's also being applied to other political leaders as well. It's something that Pierre Poilievre's included in one. I think all the leaders are impacted by that type of AI created video where it looks like it's actually the person speaking. There's a voice dubbed over. But that's an example of really concerning trends that we're seeing where it's people, their voices or similar voices, their videos, and it could really easily make people think that that's the person. And I've heard people say that they were actually duped by these things. And so it's quite concerning that this is going on.
Isn't it interesting, first off, that Jagmeet Singh seems very, very tame and unworried about all this foreign interference right now. And remember, this guy's got his security clearance, so he saw the NSICOP report. But before the final Hughes report, he was freaking out. He said he was so surprised, and he was very, very concerned after reading the NSICOP report. So what is it? Is it just a couple of writings and nothing's too bad, or this guy's flip-flopping everywhere? But he does have this one thing right about all these AI videos coming out where you can't particularly distinguish between one person's face and another, and they could just slap down an AI of Pierre Poilievre saying something he's never said before. That's why on my last video I posted the video of the house hippo from the 90s, and the government's got to start doing this stuff again, is posting these sort of catchy PSAs telling people to question what they see on YouTube or what they see on the internet and to do their research. Heck, just post the house hippo commercial all the time on the internet if you're worried about this. It's not hard, and the government is acting like they're freaked out about this.
Joe from the City TV next.
Thanks for taking the time. And just with this report coming in, obviously there is some examples of foreign interference. Just how, in your opinion, does that affect public trust with the federal government?
That is another crucial part about this. When we talk about defending our democracy, one is we want to make sure that the vote itself, that people can vote and know that the vote matters. But there's also the public trust in the institution. We want to make sure people believe that their vote matters. And so there's a combination of factors. One is we want to make sure the system is free from interference. Then we want to make sure people trust the system. And I think the allegations of foreign interference add to maybe an existing cynicism that, does my vote even matter? Then you've got allegations of the foreign governments impacting the outcome of elections that could further erode people who say, well, why should I even vote? That's why it's crucial we take this seriously. Why I'm taking it seriously as a leader, and why I encourage other parties to take it seriously. We want people to believe their vote counts, their vote matters, and it's free from foreign interference. We want more people to participate in our democracy, and to do that, we need to restore more confidence in it.
And yeah, thank you. You mentioned Elon Musk and the misinformation there. Are you specifically referencing the platform X? And do you, as a political leader, think about taking your party off that platform and venturing out into others? And how are you going to combat misinformation going forward?
I am specifically raising concerns about Elon Musk's platform. There's absolutely massive amounts of misinformation on it. You just open up the app and look through it, and you'll see multiple examples. And I'm particularly raising that concern because we've got a Canadian leader who's accepted the endorsement of Elon Musk, someone who not only has a platform of massive misinformation, but is also a part of an administration that's threatened our country, literally threatened Canada, threatened Canadian jobs and Canadian workers. And we have a conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre, who said that he's a great guy in response to whether or not he accepts that endorsement. I think that's problematic. And it's also problematic when we've got someone like Pierre Poilievre who attacks the media, attacks the independent journalism, attacks the public broadcaster. We actually need more independent journalism. We need more public journalism, and we need more high quality journalists that fact check, that confirm information. That's what we need more of. And he is questioning that, attacking that, and reducing confidence in what is a source of good information. So that's why I raise that concern. Elon Musk and Pierre Poilievre contributing to the distrust and more misinformation. It's troubling to me.
We're going to go to global next.
Oh no, say it isn't so. Pierre Poilievre said that Elon Musk was a good guy. Oh, we should condemn him because he has a different thought than we do. It's ridiculous how these people think. They're blowing something so small out of proportion and blaming Elon Musk for setting up a platform that people can talk about things without being filtered. But I can tell you, actually, on X, it is filtered to heck. So I don't know what Jagmeet's really talking about.
Question for my colleagues in Ottawa. If Trump follows through on his plan with tariffs, would you keep the Liberals in power and allow for the passage of a work relief program before supporting a non-confidence motion?
I'll just start off by the fact that I've spoken with a lot of workers who are deeply worried about what the Trump tariffs might mean. They say, sometimes I lay awake at night saying, if that tariff goes through, do I lose my job? And what's going to happen to my kids? What's going to happen to my family? And we think about the analysis that's out there. If those Trump tariffs come in place, there are hundreds and thousands of Canadian jobs at risk. Think about what that means for those workers, hundreds of thousands of workers, for their families, for those communities. This could be devastating for our country. So we do need to have a plan in place to support those that are impacted, those businesses, those workers, most importantly. I have not had any conversations with other opposition leaders. I think we need to come together to have a discussion about what is the best way forward. I've not had any discussions with the government related to this. If there is any desire to move forward, the government should call us together, like we did during COVID, and discuss a plan that supports workers. We, as a party of working people, a party founded by workers, want to make sure that there's a plan in place for workers. It's why we said from the beginning, EI is clearly not up to the task. During the pandemic, we realized EI does not cover the majority of Canadian workers. We called for changes to happen to EI so that we would be better prepared if something happens again that disrupts our economy. The Liberals did not listen. And so we are now in this position where we have an insufficient EI, the threat of tariffs, and many workers lying awake at night saying, am I going to lose my job or not? So I hope that there's a plan moving forward.
Okay, we're going to go to.
Now that is something I agree with Jagmeet about, is EI is ridiculous. if you get laid off from your job, you only get 55% of your own money back. It's your own money. You should be able to take out how much you want. I think you should stop treating people like they're little children. And an even dumber thing is if you earn a little bit by, say, if you're laid off and then you do deliveries to just make a little bit extra because you only get 55% of your income from EI. That'll be deducted off of your EI, so you're still only making 55%. It's stupid. So I do agree with that, but I don't agree with supplementing your EI with some government grant or something like that. That would be ridiculous. That would just increase inflation.
Hi, Mr. Singh. You called for MPs to be kicked out of Parliament if they were working with foreign governments. Commissioner Hogue says there is no evidence of traitors. Did you add to a sense of public trust, you think, by calling for MPs to be kicked out of Parliament when Hogue has found that there are no traitors?
Well, first of all, I relied on the information that I had before me, which was the NTCOP report and the unredacted version. We had called for a public inquiry for this very reason. We wanted the justice of the public inquiry to delve into these matters, to get the full details, to get more information. And that's what Justice Hogue did. She was able to get the supporting documentation, even speak with the intelligence officers, and was able to provide her opinion. And I thank her for her work. That was very important work. But she did highlight that there were members of sitting members of parliament right now who have questionable ethics in relation to foreign interference. She has raised some serious concerns. And I think it is a responsibility of every political party to ensure that their members of parliament are not caught up in foreign interference, are not engaged in questionable ethics in their behavior, and that there's checks and balances in place. And I thank Justice Hogue for her work in uncovering that and highlighting that that is something that she found very concerning as well.
Okay, my follow-up, I'm just going to double barrel this. One more foreign interference question and another question about tariff relief. So do you believe the recommendations from the Hogue Commission can be implemented before the next election? So pretty simple question. Do you believe that her recommendations can be implemented before the next election? And you are calling for a meeting. So this is the question about tariff relief. You are calling for a meeting of all the parties. Should one of the discussions be all of the parties working together to extend Parliament a bit longer to give more relief, to give tariff relief to people if Trump imposes his tariffs?
Okay, well, I'll take the two questions. One is, the first question is directly, it's up to the Liberals. They could have not prorogued Parliament and we would have been able to make things happen in Parliament. They could recall Parliament. So it's really up to them if they want to take any steps to implement the recommendations of Justice Hogue. So that is up to them. We've always said our commitment is to put Canada first and to defend our democracies, to protect our country from foreign interference. So that's going to be a question in the ball of the Liberals. Are they going to do anything with this or not? On the second point, when we were in the pandemic and we were up against some serious worries about people losing their jobs, we had regular meetings where opposition leaders came together and were given information about what the next steps were, and we had to find ways to work together. We pushed for significant relief for Canadians. During that period, New Democrats were the ones that really fought for things, but really everyone came together. Similarly, if there's a plan, all the opposition leaders need to come together. There needs to be a government providing information about what the next steps are. That has not happened yet. The Liberals have not reached out. They have not brought together opposition leaders. We want to provide real supports for working people that are impacted by these tariffs who are really worried. I want to see that same initiative taken. Bring people together and let's have a plan in place.
Well, hey, Jagmeet, if you're really, really for workers and really, really like concerned about getting all the opposition leaders together, you're a leader. Take initiative. Talk, like, message up Trudeau. Email him, bombard him with whatever you can, and same with the other, like bombard Mark Carney, Chrystia Freeland, all the people running for Liberal leader. I'm sure Pierre Poilievre would love to get together with you to talk about this stuff, especially publicly. Do whatever you can. Don't wait around like a slug. and then complain that the Liberals haven't come to you and asked you for your input, because you know Trudeau's not going to do that. He prorogued Parliament. He wants to stay in power as long as he can, and doesn't care about Canadians. Realize that. And just as another thing is, Jagmeet Singh said that anybody who has been found out to be have foreign interference, I don't know how to say this right now, that should be kicked out of caucus, or should be kicked out of Parliament, actually can't be kicked out of Parliament. They can only be kicked out of caucus. And I think possibly kicked out of the party, which it sounds like from the report that there are some people who did do some pretty shady things. So that definitely has to be looked at. And we still need all of those names of those people who did really shady things, because the public has to know who's been doing this, wittingly or unwittingly.
Yes. So to be clear, Mr. Singh, would you be prepared to work with a new Liberal leader on some of the recommendations in the Hogue report that would involve tabling a new bill and bringing legislation forward? Could you see that happening before moving a motion of non-confidence?
Well, again, this is about the Liberals. Like, they can make that happen right now. They can make that happen before we get to a point where we need to table confidence votes. Confidence votes are scheduled soon, and I've said I'm going to be voting against the government. But the government's serious about this. They could bring in legislation earlier. They could take steps right now. They could put forward a plan to address the recommendations of Justice Hogue right now. I have not seen that plan. I've not seen that initiative. The ball is really in their court. If the Liberals are serious about this, they should do it. And so far, I've not seen any initiative that indicates to me that they're serious about adopting anything that Justice Hogue has recommended, while I think it is very important that we do so.
And again, to be clear, would you be prepared to do it with a new Liberal leader, since there will be a new one, March 9th, and moving forward with that leader on legislation to protect against foreign interference before the next election?
Really, the question still comes back to, will the Liberals have any initiative to do this? Like, if they want to do this, the recommendations are out today. There's nothing stopping them from saying, okay, we need to bring back Parliament and do something. So really, the question goes back to the Liberals. What do you want to do? Do you want to implement these changes? Are you going to implement these changes? The question really comes back to the Liberals. We do not know where they stand. We do not know if they're interested in moving forward or not. They need to answer those questions.
Yeah, they're probably not going to do that, because then they'd have to open up Parliament again and then open themselves up to a vote of no confidence. And also, there could be inquiries against them once they implement some of those security plans. I don't see them doing that, especially because Trudeau does not have any initiative to do that.
One last question, and that will be Mark Ramsey with the Toronto Star. Please go ahead.
Mr. Singh, thank you for taking our questions. Previously, you said you would vote no confidence at the earliest opportunity, but you've been saying you want a relief package for workers, and you seem to be open to working with the government and opposition leaders to do that. If opposition leaders insist on voting no confidence at the earliest opportunity, would you still support the government in passing this relief package you're calling for?
Let us be very clear. There is nothing on the table right now. There is no plan on the table right now. There is nothing presented to me. There's nothing presented to opposition leaders. In the pandemic, what happened was the government called opposition leaders together and said that these are some of the plans we want to do. In that period of time, we also pushed the government to get more done. Nothing of that sort has happened now. Nothing of that sort is on the table. I've not been reached in any way. I've maintained my position that I'll be voting against the government at the earliest opportunity. If the Liberals are serious, though, about a plan that should be put in place to support workers, call the opposition leaders together if they're serious about it. Discuss that plan with us the way we did during the pandemic. I've not seen any of that initiative. They've not shown any sort of commitment that we saw during the pandemic. None of that has been shown now. So there is nothing on the table right now. As it stands, my position remains, we will be voting against the government at the earliest convenience. If the Liberals are serious about providing support to workers, and I think they should, then bring the opposition leaders together, present a plan. They have not done that.
The issue is, though, even if they present a plan, they're going to present a massive amount of money to that plan, but most of it's going to go to bureaucracy rather than to the actual workers. Just like everything they've done. How does the NDP have any sense of faith that the Liberals will provide workers directly the amount of money that they say they will, or they say they have, without it going to some bureaucrat somewhere or some politician, and it'll be found out later that only workers got only half of the amount that they said they did. Sometimes I think the NDP are actually in on pretty much every plan the Liberals have had. I'm not saying they do, but it's hard to deny it.
Thank you. And can you say what exactly you want to see in this in a hypothetical relief package for workers? You mentioned EI changes. Is there certain sectors you want to see support for? What exactly do you want to see in that?
Yeah, I can outline some of the elements of my plan. First of all, some of the elements of a plan that I would put in place if I was prime minister would be similar to what we raised during the pandemic. We saw many of the initial plans put forward by the Liberals help the business, but not actually help the worker. And governments or businesses were able to take support without any guarantee that they would not lay off their workers. That cannot happen again. Any support that goes has to be tied to employment levels, maintaining the same level of workers, keeping their wages in place, keeping those jobs in place. There needs to be strict rules in place that if any business is going to get support, that it has to be tied to workers. I want a worker-first approach. Workers should be supported. And if a business needs support to keep those workers in place, we need to see strict strings attached and rules in place, like I called for during the pandemic, that any amount of money that goes to a company has to be tied to the workers that are supported, tied to the workers' wages and salaries being maintained. So that's a really important element. We know in this particular challenging time that there are certain sectors that are tariff sensitive, that are going to be impacted by tariffs as imposed by Donald Trump on February 1st. So let's target those industries and those sectors to ensure that they're getting supports and those workers, most importantly, are getting supported. That's some of the elements that I would put forward of a plan. A worker-centric plan that supports those impacted and ensures that there are strings attached so that the help goes to the workers and doesn't enrich the pockets of CEOs or shareholders, doesn't result in dividends being given out. All of that has to be avoided at all costs. It has to be a worker-centric plan.
So is he saying, and I don't know if, because he's using COVID as an example of helping workers, quote unquote, is he saying that if workers work less than 24 hours a week, and this happened to me, so yeah, they work less than 24 hours a week, they'll get supplemented a certain amount of money. And then at tax time, if your EI doesn't cover it, they have to pay out of pocket to supplement that EI that they took out. Yeah, how does that help the worker? Because you know what the businesses are going to do? They're going to force the workers to work less and then take that money, even if there's more work to be done. And then if the workers have to work overtime or something like that, or over that 24 hours, they're going to get in trouble by their boss for not working hard enough to work in between that 24-hour period, working past that, and then the work or those hours get manipulated. So in that realm, it won't work, and the businesses will just get more money and be able to manipulate the system again, and then the workers have to pay through their taxes again. Congratulations, government. You're doing such a good job. But what do you think? Do you think the NDP has some good plans to avoid layoffs, avoid tariffs, and actually help the workers? And what do you think about this foreign interference report? Do you think it's actually true or not? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you could subscribe to the channel, that would be amazing. I'm definitely looking forward to hitting that 1,000 mark. And if we can hit it before the end of January, I'd be eternally grateful to you guys. Also, just quick update to something awesome happening is I will be heading off to Japan pretty soon, which is next month. So let me know in the comments down below if you guys would like some tourist videos and to see some sights around Japan while I'm there and while talking politics. Other than that, have a good day.